Want to play with some redstone but haven't got a clue what on earth is going on with all this malarkey of flashing and bashing and poking and flying stuff out in the air? Well, I'm going to try and help you out with the really basic stuff on redstone so you can at least recognise at least what these things are and what they do. Let's get on with it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night, and welcome to a slightly different tutorial from me, Avomance. Today we're going to talk about redstone. We're not talking about the redstone that we've got here in the background, this piston elevator which is awesome, and this rising and closing drawbridge gate which is also equally awesome, made out of redstone. Links in the description below and hopefully somewhere on the screen if I've got it right, don't know. But we're going to talk about the absolute basics. If you are a complete redstone noob, this is the video for you. I'm going to be talking about what on earth are these redstone torches about? What is this redstone dust? Comparators? Repeaters? I have absolutely no idea. Don't panic. I'm going to help you out by identifying what these really important redstone components are. And then you'll start to be able to put great redstone circuits together yourself. It's going to be simple. If you enjoy the video, please do make sure you hit that like button for me. It really does help out the channel. And if you haven't already, or if you're new to the channel, please do hit subscribe for really great tutorials and lots of other stuff too. Let's get on with this tutorial. Really important stuff coming. Don't go away. The first thing we're going to talk about is the source of a redstone signal. Like, I put a little line of redstone along there, and all that's done is given me a dark red line of redstone. It doesn't do anything. It is literally just a flat block, a bit like carpet, sitting on top of that block, doing absolutely nothing. For it to do anything, it's got to have a signal. And a signal, think of it like electricity. This is the electrical signal that makes the redstone work. And there are a number of sources for redstone signal. And the first and most obvious one is a redstone torch. So I'm going to put a redstone torch on this block here, and that is going to light up this redstone signal. There you go. You see how it's changed? We've got redstone all kind of smoking and whatnot. That now has power. It's got electricity, if you like. That's the best way I can describe it, to say it's now got an electrical input, which means it'll make something do something at this other end. But redstone torches are not the only sources of redstone signal. Now, redstone torches are really quite handy, and I'll talk about how they're handy in part 2 of this video, which will come another time. But they can be switched on and off, and as a result of making them go on and off, you can make redstone circuits do all kinds of things like pulses, etc. But maybe you want it to be on all the time and you never ever want it to turn off. Well, that's great. You can get a block of redstone. So this is just 9 pieces of redstone dust in your crafting table makes a block of redstone. Now, no matter what we do to this block, apart from delete it and mine it out, that can never ever be turned off. So if you want a constant 100% guaranteed signal for your redstone, a redstone block is the best way of doing it. It's also a block that can be pushed with a piston. And we'll talk about pistons in a minute, but that means that you can push a redstone block into a circuit and out of a circuit using a piston, which is a really good way of making sure a circuit turns on and off. And we'll talk about those again in a later video. Another way you can turn redstone on is a button. And a button is a pulse signal. So if I just push that button, you can see, and it turns off, on and off. So that's a good way to send a little pulse through that redstone dust, and it means that it's really simple to put, I don't know, maybe you want to just open a door for a very short time, or you want a light to flash or something like that. It's a really good way of making a short pulse for your redstone signal. However, maybe you want to manually turn it on really easily, but you want it to stay on. Well, that's what a lever does. So you can turn a lever on, and that now is on, and that will stay on until I turn it off, and it's off. And it's on and it's off, and I can turn it off and on and off and on and off and on and on and on as much as I want, or I can just leave it on. So this is a good way to, maybe if you've got a lighting system in your house and you want to turn your lights on, a lever is a really good way of doing that. Now, another way you can do a pulse signal is by using a pressure plate. Now, there are a couple of types of pressure plates. The first one is a wooden pressure plate, and if you stand on the pressure plate, as long as there is pressure on the plate, it's a pressure plate, you will get a redstone signal. And then you take them off of it, and it's off, on and off, on and off. But the thing about a pressure plate, a wooden pressure plate, is you can throw stuff onto it and it turns it on. And you collect it, it turns it off. Throw onto it, it turns it on, collect it, turns it off. So that's a wooden pressure plate. Slightly differently, we have a stone pressure plate. Now, exactly the same as a wooden pressure plate, you stand on it, it comes on. You get off of it, it turns off. You stand on it, it comes on. You get off of it, it turns off. But look at the difference here. Does nothing. you can't throw anything on to make it activate. So that's the difference between a stone pressure plate and a wooden pressure plate. So you can see it's very, very different. So now, the last of the what I would call the basic redstone signal generators is a tripwire. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a tripwire. We're just going to stick 2 tripwire hooks between those 2 blocks. I'm going to get some string, and I'm going to attach the string to the tripwire. You can see it's now pointed downwards, and if I walk through it, you'll hear the click. So you can hear that. So that is generating a very short redstone pulse whilst I move through that click, and I can show you how that's working by putting a redstone lamp on top of these 2 things. So as I walk through, it turns the redstone lamp on. Can you see that? Turns the redstone lamp on, and that generates a redstone signal in exactly the same way as a pressure plate, or perhaps as a button. And if I then, again, I can demonstrate that quite clearly using the redstone here. If I just skim that all the way around there, and look, it turns the redstone on, and whilst I'm in the tripwire, it stays on and it turns off like that. Really, really simple ways of generating a redstone signal. But what's the point of having a redstone signal? It needs to do something. Well, I'm going to show you some very basic things that you can do with your redstone signal, and then in part 2 we'll start to go on to a little bit more complex things. Really simple use of redstone in inverted commas is the iron door. Now obviously in hard, in difficult, it's going to be a danger that zombies are going to bash down your wooden door. So you want an iron door, because they can't bash down iron doors, but you can't open an iron door. You just can't open it. It doesn't matter how many times you click on it, it doesn't open. You need to open it using a redstone signal. And we've got a little button there, and that opens that like that. Very, very simple. So we can walk through it. And then we've got a pressure plate, which also gives a signal to open it up that way as well. So really simple iron door. And strictly speaking, it's very loosely linked to redstone, but it's an important tool, especially when you're in hardcore mode. The first really important thing we're going to talk about that makes it slightly more complex is the fact that redstone has a limit to its signal. For every square, every block you move along, the signal gets ever so slightly less strong. And there are 15 blocks before the signal runs out. So if I am to turn that one on, you can see there, turn it on, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 blocks. That one has no signal. If I was to bring that there, so let's actually do that, shall we? Let's show you what I mean. It lights up, but because it was there, it doesn't. And that means that the signal has run out. But you might want to do circuits that have got much longer signals than 15, but that's okay, because that's where we get our friend, the repeater. And what that does is that repeats the signal. So if I go, I don't know, say halfway, and I remove that redstone and I put in a repeater. Now, repeater has a direction. You can see there are arrows pointing away from the lever towards the light, and it's also got this lever there, which I'm going to show you about in a minute. But now, if I turn this lever now, the light comes on. And that's because the signal has entered into this repeater. The repeater said, boom, I'm going to boost you. And it starts again from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's only on number 10. That could be much further along and still be lit up, which is brilliant. Now, repeaters have another function. They can slow down the way in which the signal comes out. So if I set that to what's called 4 ticks, you can see that's 1 tick, 2 ticks, 3 ticks, and 4 ticks. That puts a delay onto the signal coming in and out. So if you keep an eye on that light at the end, if I click it on, there's a delay in it coming on. Now if I was to put loads of repeaters like that, turn it off, you can see it's still on, and now it goes off, turn it on, look, you can see it's going on really slowly. So that allows you to put a delay into a circuit. Each tick, so each one of these kind of clicks, so that's 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, 3/10 of a second, and 4/10 of a second, or what it's called in Minecraft, 1, 2, 3, or 4 ticks. Important phrases, you can hear them all the time. Ticks are what we use to describe 1/10 of a second in Minecraft. Another source of a redstone signal is a chest. Yeah, believe it or not, a chest can give you a redstone signal. In fact, a number of other things can give you redstone signals. But a chest is a really, really useful one because you can let the signal toggle on and off. And the way you actually suck the signal out is by using a comparator. Again, comparators have got a direction. You can see there's an arrow going that way. Don't worry about these arrows going left and right. That's kind of more advanced use of a comparator, and we're not going to go into that in this particular episode. We'll do that in a later episode. But if you've got the 2 reds there and the 1 red there, that is going to suck a signal out of the block that you've got behind it or in front of it, and that will push a signal out to that lamp. Now, to make a signal in one of these, it's very simple. You have to open the chest and put something in, and you can see it turns a signal on. But look at that. The signal isn't very strong. It's 1 block. That's because you need to put multiple items into the chest to create a stronger signal. So if we were to put all of these bits in, you'll see, again, it hasn't worked. Now that's because a signal is generated when you put in items that are non-stackable. So non-stackable things obviously include water buckets, weapons, armor, things like that. Things that you can't stack into stack of 16 or 64 into that chest. So let's change this up a little bit. And you can see here we've got a chest powering that light. Now that's crazy, right? You've got a wooden chest powering the light. What have we got in it? We've got a number of items in there, and that's what's giving that signal to shoot that signal out like that. You can see got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, some extra diamond swords in there as well to give that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strong signal to create that light. So comparators suck out signal from these blocks, and chests you can actually make it so they've got different strengths of signal, so you can control it. Maybe you can drop things into and out of chests using hoppers, and we'll talk about hoppers in a minute. And that can help, depending on what you put in the chest, whether or not a signal goes out, or whether or not it goes out far enough to power 1, 2, 3, or maybe even 4 circuits. It's really, really clever stuff. Now, whilst this strictly speaking isn't redstone, a hopper combined with a chest or some other kind of container is a really useful redstone tool. Now you can see the hopper there is feeding straight into the chest, and you can make these hoppers run as far and in as many different directions as you would like. So if you press shift and stick a hopper in there and then keep going backwards, you could run a circuit that goes, well, anywhere you'd like really. So again, press shift, put one up there, press shift. If I there you go. So I can now put, if I get a block there, let's make this a little bit more simple for myself. So if I then put a block next to that, remember I've got to crouch like that. So if I then put, you can see that chest is empty at the moment, completely empty. If I then go along here and throw this block into that hopper, that's gone. That block is going to travel all the way down here and all the way along here and should be in the chest. Yeah, thank goodness that worked. I'd have looked like a right fool. But yeah, so you can do transportation systems of products or blocks or whatever else into using lots and lots of hoppers and various chests, etc., to join up items, going from, maybe you want to do a really efficient mining system and you want to shove the stuff that you've just mined and you want it to go into a chest miles away. Well, you can do that using hoppers, and then you can combine that system with the comparator system that I just showed you like that, and then that can potentially, let's put that there like that, that can potentially power that light. So let's go back up here, and if I put that into the hopper and we'll wait for that light to come on, and there it comes on. That's how long it takes to transport. It's really clever, this stuff, and if you combine it in the right way you can make any number of different circuits. Now, people like to see movement. Movement's fun, isn't it? So in Minecraft, to get movement we often use pistons. Now pistons, there are 2 types. We've got a regular piston, which is one of these. It's got no green goo on the front, and we've got a sticky piston, which is one of those which has got green goo on the front, which you get using making a piston with slime. We're not going to talk about that in just a moment. We're going to talk about the regular piston. Regular piston pushes a block but doesn't keep it. It pushes it away from itself and then the block stays away. Lots of different uses, but one potentially really good use is to push a block across a ravine or something like that. So we can click that like that, and that pushes the block. So you can continue that, and again, and again. And you can keep going until it's pushed 12 blocks. It will not push a 13th block, but it's a really good way of maybe spanning a bit of a gap across to make a small bridge. Works very, very well without having to jump across. That keeps going like that, see? Or absolutely using these for making flying machines. Flying machines are a really good way to use pistons, because they push everything along, and then if you combine them with sticky pistons and slime blocks, you can then get stuff to be dragged along behind at the same time. Very clever. Not very good at them myself, but that is another way you can use one of those pistons. Then you've got a sticky piston. Now, sticky pistons are similar in that they work in exactly the same way, except they keep the block that you've put onto them. So let's put that block there. If I was to stick it, and it pulls it back again. So that's quite useful if you want to make maybe a circuit that can turn on and off using a redstone block. With a sticky piston, you have to separate this redstone block from the piston, because, well, there's something called a bud switch, which means that if the redstone block is one block separated, it still manages to power it. And it's not a glitch, it's just a feature of the redstone block itself, but it's a little bit annoying when you're trying to do really, really simple circuits like this. So what I've got here, I've got a slime block which is sticking to the redstone block, but it's creating a separation between the piston and the block. And as a result of it being a slime block, we have to do immovable blocks here, otherwise all it's going to do is a slime block's just going to make it jump up that way. So if I put a power there and click it, you can see that turns it on and then takes it down, turns it on and then takes it down. So that's one possible use of a sticky piston. There are lots and lots and lots of other uses of sticky pistons, not least of which this fella here, which is our slime piston elevator, and it's really, really effective. And as I say, there is a link to that in the description below. So that's how you use pistons. The last two things I want to talk about are the dropper and the dispenser. Now, they both look a little bit similar. You can fill them up with stuff. One's got a smiley face in this particular texture pack, and one's got a circle, but they do both look very similar. So if I was to put a block in that one and a block in that one, if I was to click the dropper, it just shoots the block out. If I was to click the dispenser, it just shoots the drop out. It's the same thing with a standard block. However, let's see what it's like if we use an arrow. It's slightly different. So here's the dropper, it just chucks an arrow out. Here's the dispenser, it shoots an arrow out. So that is how you would make an arrow cannon. A dropper ain't no good for an arrow cannon, you want a dispenser. Now let's look at it in a slightly different way. Let's get a bucket of water into that one and a bucket of water into that one. If we were to activate the bucket of water in the dropper, it just shoots out the bucket of water. If we were to activate the bucket of water in the dispenser, it shoots out actual water. It would do exactly the same with lava. And what's really interesting is if you click the button again, it sucks the water back in. Click the button again, out it comes. Click the button again and it sucks the water back in. It's a really good way to create kind of rivers and maybe water gates and all these other kind of clever things using a dispenser, not a dropper. And another thing that's really quite cool with these is if we put one of these inside here, one of those inside there. Let's fill up that gap. So if we were then to click on the dropper, we've got a villager egg inside. What happens with the dropper? It chucks out a villager egg. Thank you very much for my villager egg. If we were to use the dispenser, it's a villager egg inside, it chucks out an actual villager. Yeah, you can create spawners using dispensers. Dispensers are a really, really good way to be able to spawn in items using a redstone current filled with kind of spawn eggs. Now, I appreciate they're very difficult to come by in survival, but in creative, they're a really good way to make some clever gizmos. So now, maybe some of this makes just a little bit more sense. You can have all kinds of fun with redstone, shooting arrows up. That poor villager's going to die any minute. Look at him, he's going to go, oh, that's done him. But all of this stuff can be done using the really basic stuff I've just showed you. Now we're going to do a few more of these redstone tutorials on the really basic side over the future, so do look out for them. But I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, make sure you bash that like button for me as hard as you possibly can. I don't know you've liked the video unless you hit the like button. And if you've enjoyed the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. It'd be great to see you in my sub club, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. You take it easy now. Bye.